this meeting.
Just saying.
Doesn't seem to have generated a huge impact, but
I feel like maybe we need to produce a brochure.
Brochure?
Yeah, something that just kind of highlights all the great fun that we have in reviewing policy. All right. We are now streaming.
Tom seems nonplussed at this thought.
We will gavel in here. Item number 1, calling to order at 9:04 a.m. on July 30th. This regular meeting of the Eastern Reading Region 9 Joint Boards of Education Policy Committee. Our second item on the agenda is the approval of minutes.
so moved.
Thank you very much for the July 23rd meeting. Any discussion? No? All right. I'm going to, Maureen?
Yep.
Thank you. In favor? That's a yap. That's a yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Christopher?
Aye.
Yes. And Gwen?
Yes.
Excellent. I vote yes. Motion passes. The minutes are approved unanimously. That takes us to public comment. I see Morna with us again on this bright and sunny, at least where I am, bright and sunny Friday morning. Morna, any public comment?
I have no comment except to say that I have no comment.
And that will be duly noted for the record. Thank you. Committee member comment.
Morna, what is your last name for the minutes?
It's Kreitz Moore hyphenated. CRITES hyphen MOORE.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And committee member comment.
And maybe we should just have people's, identification if we have public members, their screen say their first and their last name, and that will save that little bit of time.
Yeah, we can pass along. I wonder if maybe when we publish the agendas and the links, we can put please have,
Sure.
full first and last name for the,
I mean, there's no obligation to be identified unless you're going
Right.
to say anything. So you can't tell people that it's a condition to attend
Yeah.
to have their full name displayed.
Yeah, we maybe just say if you plan to make public comment, it'll streamline the process or something like that. Okay, good. So I think that was committee member comment. Any additional committee member comment before we jump in?
No.
Okay. So our sort of standing agenda items: the Cape Model Policy Review, administrative updates, and tri-board governance. I think for the time being, the tri-board governance is on pause while we look at lining up. And I got a series of recommendations from Tom about people who could help us facilitate the tri-board governance. And I need to follow up with those folks and see sort of what that landscape looks like. I will say that there's, it sounds like I have support in August to actually dive into some of this work with the Easton board. So I don't know what the appetite is, and I know we're in the midst of a superintendent search, which could be a significant drag. I mean, we know it's going to be a pull on our time the week of the one next week, and then the following week we have quite a bit for the people who are involved.
There was a correction. It was that first date of the August 4th was removed by Cheryl from the list. It's the 9th, 10th, 12th.
No, it is still, it is still the 4th for committee members. It is not an interview.
That's right. Yeah, the 4th is just a function of reviewing resumes and figuring out who we want to advance. So I know there's a lot going on that week, but it sounds like there is appetite in Easton to actually dive into this, and it would be really nice. So if I can ask committee members to sort of check back in with your respective boards to see if there's any possibility of doing that meeting in any time in August. It's worth a try at least. I know it may be tight turnaround for any of the facilitators we might be trying to line up though.
For what it's worth, I have intentionally tried not to schedule anything for my board until at least the 16th of August, just to give everybody a little bit of headspace.
Yep.
Yes.
And I asked them to prepare to have a board self-evaluation session when we do convene the week of the 16th or the 21st.
Okay. And so I guess, we're not really diving into the tri-board governance. So that was my long way of saying, I don't think we're going to get to 5C today, just because I don't think we have anything really to dive in there on. Tom, is there anything that we should set aside time for 5B, the administrative updates, before we jump into the model policy review discussions?
No, I think you should move to the discussion.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're back at it. after 2.5 months of diving in on the tri-board governance items and really trying to sort of flesh out content in that bucket, I think we're ready to dive back in on the Cape Model policy review. So I think first we should start with just a sort of where are we and what has our process been? And I think for the benefit of Tom and certainly members of the public, it'd be useful to give that update. So just I'll sort of try to set the stage, and I'll encourage other committee members to jump in and add anything that I'm missing. We started this process a while ago, right? We started this because we know that we have 3 essentially separate policy manuals today, one for each board, and that the language in those manuals in some cases is very similar or exactly the same, and in other cases it's wildly different. There are places where there's content in one and not another that doesn't address policy at all. So we said, we know this is important work that we should be doing. We started sort of looking at like, what's the best way to do that? And we actually started with a manual process, I think a couple of years ago, where we were each carving out a section of the policies and sort of going through with pens and pencils and marking it up. And as we started to get to the nuts and bolts of what that would look like, it became a bit of a nightmare because we were sort of working off of a Frankenstein monster. It was just, it was already so modified on modifications, and who knew where the sort of actual language came from. We said it would be better to reset and start from the CABE model policy. So CABE, Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, does work to, there's a new law. That law says you have to do this. Here is some sample policy, and here's sample, version A of the policy. Here's version B of the policy. Here's version C of the policy. Very common practice. We'll also get when there's sort of new changes, for instance, very, very sort of classic example, and something that we faced recently when the previous presidential administration had certain points of view on the way that Title IX policy was going to be interpreted. We needed to react to that. And so CABE had some language. We were able to take that language and say, okay, good, that fits squarely here. And we could approve that as a kind of sort of emergency, like, hey, we need to make sure that we're compliant with the law and that our policies reflect that. So in any event, it is good practice, we believe, to start off of the CABE model policy. That said, the CABE model policy is not just policy. It oftentimes includes aspirational language, and it also includes sort of regulation, which I know, to the layperson, which I'm one of them, one of the 4 members of this committee, who and half of the committee is made up of attorneys, so that's really nice. But I, the layperson, oftentimes I'm going to lean on Maureen and Chris to help make sure that I'm sort of thinking about this properly. But regulations are really, here is how you're going to go about the sort of nuts and bolts of enacting this policy, which is great, and that's important stuff, but that's stuff that the superintendent, central office, building leaders should be involved in, not the boards. The boards should be a part of the policy process, and that's really about, here is how we are going to comply with the law, and that can be very straightforward. It doesn't need to be thousands of pages. It can be really specific to the laws that govern the way that we sort of execute on our mission of bringing education to the students in our towns. Those laws, here is how we are going to comply with them. And it can be as simple as that. We do not need a ton of mission statements or anything like that inside of the policy. The boards obviously should have mission statements that guide our work overall, but that's not policy. That's a separate thing. So anything that I've said here in teeing that up that anyone would disagree with? Or one
the regulation can erode the policy if the regulation isn't done right. That's
Here. So we are working through the process, and we have the way that we've organized this is essentially we take the CABE model policy, which is available online, and we put it into a Google document. We separately go through the document to say, sort of make comments that inform our discussion. They're not meant to be hey, let's have these comments, because that would be an illegal on sort of online meeting. It's simply a function of, hey, here's something I'm flagging, here's something I'm flagging, here's something I'm flagging. And then in our conversations each week, we go through those comments and discuss. So I think that summarizes so far the sort of the work that we've been doing. I do want to take a moment to describe sort of how we've been doing that work in terms of the practices. And bear with me just 1 second.
While you're doing that, John, can I make an observation or comment about sort of the impact of our work practically?
Please.
And that is, there's a policy that all 3 boards have that's called gifts, grants, and requests, I think. And it basically sets the thresholds for board action when we're receiving a gift. The policy is called gifts, grants, and requests. It does not talk about grants anywhere. The model policy that we've worked on a number of months ago talks about grants and says that, and imposes upon the administration an obligation to report certain things about grants. Other boards, I've learned, require that the boards approve grants the same way they approve gifts, which has created an interesting situation currently because of all of the federal and state aid that's coming in by grant.
Oh,
All of the ESSER grants need board action in those boards. They do not require board action in our boards because our policy does not cover grants. And so it's just sort of an interesting distinction between different policies because there's no legal obligation to require action for grants. Some boards have imposed that obligation by policy. We have not, but it's just sort of one of those things to be mindful of. When we're saying we want our policies to reflect the law, there are policy choices that can be made outside of that that have really direct operational impact.
I've generally thought, as an aside, that the policy of having the board approve gifts should be, the amount of the gift should be raised. Some of these nominal, i.e. under $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 gifts should not be brought to the boards. But that's
And if I
Possibly
can,
on a reporting
can I jump
basis.
in on
but-
that it is something that you just have to keep in mind. What are these threshold dollar amounts in both towns or the 3 districts? Also, I would like to suggest when the boards do their self-reflexive work, could we get some of this technical board approval work that is not controversial, that doesn't have anything that needs discussion, just into a consent agenda item? You know,
Right.
move
on the papers.
all in
Right.
favor, go, and save yourself time for discussing academics, community, and future.
We do those things, Tom?
There should be a version that's on the papers like we have in the court system. You know, it just goes in and it's done.
Yeah, thanks.
Good. Okay. So I want to, I'm gonna just share my screen here in a minute. Sorry. Which I totally know how to do, I swear. So we have the sort of the process, the sort of core process dictated here. Essentially, I go into the CABE portal and I copy out sections, and we agree each week. Here's the stuff we're gonna review this week, and we generally look at it in 30-page increments. That's about as much as is I don't know, digestible in a week by the various committee members. Go in, mark up the places that we want to discuss, and any places where we think this is not or is sort of our preferred piece. I missed. No one said to zoom in, which was weird because that's the typical thing. So right in here, it should be John needs to zoom in the screen.
That's meaning fatigue for you, John.
Right. And I had that wrong. It wasn't 30, it's 60 pages. Sorry. Thank you. And then we go in, we look at each one of the pieces, and we sort of tag some of the items as well. So one of the activities that we're engaged in that I think is enormously valuable, and it would be really nice to get this done before we bring in a new superintendent, is to actually make sure that we're finished with this exercise, the enumerated duties table. Essentially, whenever we're going through policy and the policy says the superintendent or their designee shall, we want to tag that, because what I don't think we have is a comprehensive list. And I say I don't think, but I know we don't have this, is a comprehensive list of the duties of the superintendent dictated by policy. And so if we do that, that does 2 things. 1, it makes sure that we know everything that we need to do. 2, it helps us to sort of prioritize and maybe reconsider, because what we may be saying is, here's 5 pounds of enumerated duties in a 1 pound bag. And we need to figure out whether or not that's a sustainable practice.
Right. A lot of these things sound great in isolation, but in combination are ridiculous.
That's exactly right. And so you can't prioritize. This is my mantra every time I'm talking about project management at work or project management anywhere, is you can't prioritize unless you know the inventory. So we're starting by, let's make sure that as we go through the policies, we're tagging them as EDT, which is our enumerated duties table. So they will find their way into a single document as we go through and look at those tags. Good. And then, so we meet to review. And then once we, whenever we flag something for EDT, that goes into that table. We also have the open issues document. So things that we say, is that how that works? What is the practice? And sometimes we're flagging it for the superintendent or the assistant superintendent of curriculum or any other member and sometimes attorneys we need to refer to get questions answered. And then we look at the, sort of any of the things that we're sort of flagging, get that back. And, ideally what we're doing is approving these policies for recommendation to our boards for first and second reading. So far, we have not done that. We have not taken a large sort of group of these. And I think we're through the 4,000 series. We may want to sort of take a stop here and say, should we look back at everything we've done so far through the 4,000 series and try to get those approved, or should we plow through the rest and do this in sort of one big, one big set of discussions around approving these policies? So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that.
Did we talk about taking our issues list basically and scheduling a different style meeting, whether it's in person or evening, for a longer period of time to plow through the issues as part of the cleanup process?
We haven't, but we should. I mean, I think that's a really good way of doing this. I think we had thought we'll just carve out time during these regular Friday sessions with administrators or whoever else, on the open issues document to say, can you give us your advice on these? But we could schedule a separate.
So I wonder if sort of an evening at Barlow or something, just to plow through the open issues is better than we got through some of them this week. We're going to keep going on a week by week basis. So.
Yeah, that could work.
I think it's going to be important to give a roadmap for how this work is going to be done in case board members rotate out of these positions.
Yeah, agreed.
November.
All right, I'm just going to make a note here. Yeah, I would also, and Maureen, I think that's a really good idea. I've been thinking a lot about calendars, of work lately, and I think it's a very good idea. So we probably want to just do. Let's get another comment in here and just say we need.
You will still be here to do this work, John, but the remainder members of the committee, it is uncertain.
The consulting firm of Williams and Parkin is available for a fee to continue this work at a later date.
Absolutely.
It is actually worth.
There's some key words in that statement by Mr. Parkin that we can't misconstrue in any way, but are very true.
Right. I should note it has been. One of my board members has asked, can't we just get a law firm to do this work so that we don't have to? I think I would love to sort of, I have reasons why I don't think that's a good idea, but I would love to hear anybody else's feedback on that.
It's policy. So you're making decisions, right? You're making guiding principles. You can't delegate that thought work to a law firm. The law firm can tell you whether it's legally appropriate or inappropriate, but they can't tell you what policies to adapt. It's like a client, you can give a client advice about what tactic to engage in, but you can't make that decision for them. We make that decision, really.
They will sell you an off-the-shelf book of policies that are fine and legally compliant, but maybe and likely not appropriate for the work that we do in these three districts, which needs to be, somewhat bespoke for our situation. Right. And in addition, if you conceive of a Board of Education as a governance and policy setting body to basically offload that entire function to a law firm is saying, I have no interest in doing a third of my obligation.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right, good.
That
So,
committee member can just watch this policy discussion.
Yeah.
For the answer.
yep. And I would also say, the process I just went through is the sort of full series review. We also had this sort of slightly different version for urgent policies. So like when we got the updates on Title IX and needed to sort of speed the process of making sure that we were compliant. We've got this table of contents just has a really sort of simple, like, here are the core documents that we've already referred to many of these sort of open issues. Policy updates collection is the, when we get a referral from administrators saying, hey, here are things you really need to pay attention to, or when we get a CABE policy update, flagging those things and putting them there. And then we have the full policy manual. And that's organized into these various series. So we have the zeros, 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6. I don't know what happened to the 8s. Maybe at one time there was an 8,000 series and it was abolished, but it's not there and never has been in ours. So fine. And then the 9,000 series is.
Can I make a suggestion? If you don't have it there, you note that it's there and you say to be determined or something.
Yeah.
So that someone doesn't see that as a technical error, right?
Intentionally omitted or something.
Something like that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just do a comment for now. Which I know there's a shortcut too, but and we one of our process pieces is that you're not allowed to fault me for not knowing how to spell anything. All right. And I really don't. So,
But you have Google skills and project management skills that are extraordinary. So we'll take that.
Thank you. Okay. So the board bylaws, that's one piece that we've kept separate from these discussions, and that we would intend to maintain 3 separate sets of bylaws. Each board, fine to sort of do their own. Certainly if Reading adopts a bylaw that we think is beneficial to the others, it's nice to know about those things and to consider them.
I think the tri-board governance work will also provide an opportunity to flag where the bylaws either create stumbling blocks or interfere with each other, and allow all the boards to figure out for themselves what that means.
So I was thinking about, like, we should have those, and they may not actually be policies. They may be sort of MOAs, or they may be like some other construction that we're going to consider for sort of here's the in case of emergency, when we disagree, when we need to do this, when we need to, this is how we function. So we should figure out how we're going to sort of enshrine these in the document. And maybe they're at the beginning.
May I observe that it would proceed that each board should have a member who is the designated parliamentarian who is familiar with their own nuance. And also, I think there's implications for how do you bring a new board member on board? What kind of induction does the board conduct? Seems that what we've adopted is, here's your seat, let's get to work. And it would help to have an orientation for new board members.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I was just speaking with one member of my board yesterday, and it seems to be that people are starting to really sort of understand that the way we've been doing board member orientation in terms of not doing it is not really good. So I was going to reach out to the chairs of the 3 boards and ask if they had a member they would suggest to just kind of work, just start throwing things into a sheet. Just here are things that are important for board members to know, just so that we have an inventory of there's FOI and there's this and there's this and there's this, just so we have a sense of the things that people wish they knew when they started. And it just, sort of just one person from each board to sort of contribute to that. We don't need to form a committee or do anything like that. It's just like add some of those things, and then we can flesh it out and say, like, how much work would that be? And that maybe could be a policy committee thing that we do, or maybe it's appropriate to form a committee temporarily to do that work or something. But just starting with what's the stuff that we're talking about. Okay, So here we do have, here's the sort of primer on the tri-board and some of the sort of starting language that we were thinking about in this space before we went off for the last two and a half months and really dove in. So we have, this is not the most current version of this. The most current version is in the spreadsheet that we're using to document that, and I'll replace that in this document. We also, so here's our enumerated duties as it exists so far. Joint policy committee core principles. So, and this is actually the one of the big things that I wanted to make sure that we just kind of look at again and say, yes, we still agree with this, and then move forward from there. So number one, policies are about federal and state law. Two, that we're using CABE as our starting point. And we think that, you know, they provide a nice foundation that we can work on. Aspirational statements don't need to be inside of the core policies. Internal board governance carried out, you know, in the bylaws. So we've touched on most of these already. Where there's an option between complex / lengthy language and concise language, we're going to choose the concise language. And then finally, that we would expect that as sort of an ongoing basis, we come back and look at the relevant legislation that's been sent by CAPE, so that we don't find ourselves, this is sort of once we're done with this process, that we wouldn't necessarily have to have a weekly meeting, but that we would sign up for on a quarterly basis. We would come back and look at any new things, any changes, so that we're sort of getting into the practice of maintaining this. So good. Any changes, anything anyone would want to add or edit here? Okay. All right. So as I said, I believe we are to the 4,000 series. So I think today I'm just gonna scroll through here. Yeah. Okay. So this is, bear with me one moment, and I'm gonna bring up the latest document.
Did we finish 3,000s?
I don't think we did. I think, I think we did finish it, but I just want to look at the last few pages of 3,000 to refresh people's memories, because I think we did get to the last few pages. There we go. 3,000 series. It's nice when it's all organized where it's, supposed to be. Okay. It's just taking a minute to load in here. I like when you open it up and it says 6 pages, and then you go, and you start to scroll and it goes, yeah, 6, 76, 80, 12, 50. What are you doing? Keep scrolling. Okay. Good. Healthy food. Good. This is our deep dive on Go Guardian. Okay. Move to regulation. So, and it's very handy that CABE has tagged items with an R when they're regulations. So it makes it easy to move those. So you can see we've got comments. I think we're now actually to the bottom. So we've got, if you're hearing one of my sons say, ow, it's because my other son is touching him, and he's not allowed to. It's instant pain for some reason. Okay. All right. So I think, yes, I like laugh out loud. I don't know what that's referring to. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure.
That was mostly for Maureen's
I get it.
amusement, I think.
I got to go get a law degree to understand that joke. I get it.
There are certain states where you can just be tutored by lawyers and then take the bar, i.e. California. So maybe you just regard this as your tutorial.
Is what you just said true? I'm moving to California immediately. But then I can't be on the board and be a part of this. It's
It's
conundrum.
only a 3-day bar exam.
No, it's been revised to 2.
Oh, really? That's maybe okay.
I think we did in fact finish the 3000 series. And I think I'm sorry, somebody just,
Can we go up a little bit and just?
yeah.
I don't see any of your comments that says we're through here for today or we finished here for today. These look
Yeah.
like initial comments.
Yeah, let's look for that. So this is Maureen stopping her comments here on the 3rd.
And I don't remember where I picked up or if
Yeah.
I picked up after that.
Move to regulations file. I just saw Sarah Lieberger try to join, but I don't see her here now. I don't know what
She
happened.
was trying to join and told me so.
Okay. I'm making others co-hosts in case it's something with my sharing or something. I'm not seeing where I have. So let's just look through a couple of these and just, help us get back into the flow.
We definitely talked about this.
Right. So I think we did finish the 3000.
Then we must be on the 4000s. I agree with you.
And maybe we didn't, maybe we just didn't sort of put that thing because we were actually done with the 3000. So usually the practice has been wherever we stop for the day, I just make a comment stopping here on blah, blah, blah. I just didn't do it on that one. Gwen, I'm sorry if you were trying to speak, you're on mute. No. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So let's just briefly hit these last few to make sure that we're, sort of this is sort of we're remembering correctly and getting back into this process. And then and then I think we'll open up the 4000 series and just sort of peek through and see what do we think is reasonable? Is 60 pages a good sort of reasonable amount? In some cases, you've got, here's 2 policies and then here's 40 pages of regulation. And so we might say, okay, on this one, we could probably do 100 pages or something. So let's see. So
we are coincidentally in the policy that Stephanie brought up that we have to reframe. I don't know that I saw her whatever was going to be disseminated on this, but I know that there was something
Right.
coming out.
Yeah, this has already been flagged for a different level of review because of the statute change.
that's right. Okay, good. And I remember those discussions. Whoops, hold on. CMP. Child nutrition programs. Okay. All meal definition above should probably be struck. Okay, so this is all related. So this
This all
be
goes back into that. Right?
I'm just gonna tag this now. Okay. Good. Good. And just finding a bunch of this is my largest contribution tends to be in the, oh, look, a duty. I can flag that. Not so much in the, that sounds legal. Deep dive and go guardian did that. More EDD. Okay. So I think the rest of this is, we were all fine with. Hold on. Okay. So this is where you stopped on the 3rd. Let's check to see. Is there anything here, Maureen, as we look at this, we're looking at records. Do you remember reviewing this or do you want to take another look at this before? Because I think I have here, we have you finishing review on the 3rd here. So I'm not sure. And it may have been that it was Glenn, Chris, and I who sort of finished the 3000 series. So maybe.
I have no recall, John.
Okay. All right.
I keep coming back to this idea that we have this vague idea of what records retention is, but I don't feel like we have a real concrete understanding of what records retention is. And It's a ticking time bomb if we don't have a common understanding by policy.
Okay. So I think it might be useful for us to dive in on this section, and then let's take a look real quick at the 4. I don't mean right now, but I mean for us to individually review. There's Sarah again. Good. So for individual review, for the 6th, is everyone available next Friday?
Let's take a peek.
I'm not sure for the next 2 weeks. I have a lot going on at work,
Okay.
but I'll try.
If Chris and Maureen, if you're available on the 6th, we could target this.
Somehow my calendar has joint policy committee on my calendar for 9 o'clock next week 5 times.
Sweet.
The 6th is fine.
That's a feature.
The 6th is fine. I have problems on the 27th clearly and the 20th possibly, but the 6th is fine.
Okay. And I don't, I could have sworn I copied over the 4000 series, but I don't see it here in my folder. Let me just check one more source. I got the 6000. I've got mask policy that's in the 4000 series, but nothing else. Okay. I do have the login to CABE. I think I can do this. No. I don't need to know how to log in. No. Stop. Thank you. I'm already logged in.
I was unable to make that portal work when they sent it around at all.
So you weren't able to log into it?
No, it gave me some error,
Okay.
like the page didn't load at all.
Okay, so I am logged into it successfully.
I see 4000 series CABE in Google Docs already, John.
You do? Okay. Then
Last edit by
try
Sharon
again.
Luciano, 1/10/2020.
let me try again.
I just searched my drive for 4000.
Huh.
And
See
all of us
individual-
on the committee have that shared with us.
This looks, I can see individual policies, but I'm not seeing a cohesive document. Sorry.
You're an editor.
And I have individual documents where I'm an owner.
I'm gonna see if I can. I can't make you the owner, but
Do you want
let's
to,
share.
can you share your screen? Because we don't, we just need to take a look to see whether or not 60, or let's say 30 pages is reasonable, given we're also going to look at the end of the 3000
Yep,
series.
let's see.
Okay.
This bigger, not this one's screen. Come on. There we go.
Okay.
All right. So because this was last edited on January 10th, 2020, I'm going to assume that there are no comments from anybody in this document.
Right. And we probably, I'll go grab I'll grab the most recent version.
Yeah.
If I can get the policy portal to work. But if we could just scroll through, because it's generally there aren't going to be huge differences. If we could just scroll a little bit.
Right. This is a really aspirational policy that could probably
Yep.
be pared down or eliminated.
Yep.
This is Title IX, which we've just
Yep.
got into.
Yep.
Recruitment and selection, we're going to want to have a pretty solid conversation on, because this is a policy that comes up repeatedly with respect to whose job it is to do what.
Right.
Recruitment and selection,
Mhm.
determining who highly qualified teachers are. This feels like a regulation now.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
EEO,
And then regs.
regs for
It
EEO.
looks like a pretty regular mix here of reg and policy. I think that what I was concerned about is I didn't want to say, hey, let's do 60 pages or let's do 30 pages, and that 29 of them are regulation, but this looks like a pretty reasonable mix. And there's definitely
Health exams, latent tuberculosis.
We probably won't get to that next
On
week.
page 19.
Yeah, but we've got to have a meaty conversation about the other stuff. Okay, so I think it seems reasonable that we're doing a regular sort of review. So the end of the 3000 series, starting where I tagged the comment, and then diving in to, let's say, the first 30 pages of
Yep.
4000 series.
Yeah.
That gets you through. This is a long one. It keeps going. It feels like a regulation. No, it's a policy. Maybe target through page 35.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
For next week, you mean?
Yes, for next week. Okay, so coming to the meeting with sort of anything we want to tag on those items. I think that'll be a good conversation. And then overall, to get the timeline to sort of understand how much is left for us to get through the 4, 5, 6, 7 items. I'm just going to sort of poke around and sort of see how many pages in each one of those.
The 4000 series is 215 pages.
Yeah. So, maybe we can do that in 3 or 4 sittings.
Or, if we want to start talking about having a
Right.
2-hour chunk in the evening that might just move faster at some points without the lead in, lead out of the mornings.
Right. Yeah, but it would be really nice if we could get through the rest of these, by October, the beginning of October.
If you target the October tri-board meeting, the 3rd week of October, it's not a
Right.
bad target.
Right. Okay, good. Anybody have anything else? Anything else that folks want me to do any homework on or anything that would be helpful for next week? Okay. Tom, anything?
No, other than I just am so impressed and grateful that you've kept this work going. I think it's most systems are not up to date with their policies, and that has, a drag on their efficiency. So, you're doing the hard work now, and then set up a maintenance way to keep it alive and moving. It's really, really good.
Good. Thanks. Thank
And
you.
John and I need to speak with the Easton board chair after this meeting's over.
Okay. All right. Very
Big
good.
call to the principal's office.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So I think that rounds out our agenda. We'll look for public comment.
I do actually, shockingly.
Please.
I
And
just
you,
have a.
sorry, can you say
it's
your street?
Morna.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Gallows Hill Road in Reading.
Thank you.
A wonderful street name, you must agree. I just have a question. You were speaking earlier about gifts and grants. What are gifts? What are examples of gifts?
And
Oh,
so,
I'll give you an example. The Barlow Alumni Association has an interest in establishing a very nicely furnished reading room in the library at the high school, and that association would give Region 9 a certain amount of money to pay for it. That would be considered a gift.
Nice. And so you spoke about having a threshold of stuff that you didn't need to go through any folderol to accept. And I'm just wondering, are all of these gifts, regardless of their amount, listed somewhere publicly?
Yeah, they're all currently any gift or even grant would be in the minutes of the board meeting where it was an item for the board to accept it. Most recently, Region 9 accepted 7,500 or so from the Easton Learning Foundation to the science department at the high school. So it's in the motions of the minutes.
So I guess I would just like to suggest that there should be a separate list maintained every time something comes up in the motions of the minutes, because if someone wants to see, what are all the gifts that have been received, they can't be expected to go through all of the minutes, just hoping to happen upon something.
So, I'll pause the back and forth a little bit there, and just so generally speaking, the sort of public comment period is not for sort of Q&A and back and forth, and because it can certainly devolve into
Yeah.
some sort of undesirable sort of exchanges on these meetings. So generally, Robert's rules dictates that the sort of public comment is
Okay,
it's okay.
that's
Most-
cool.
most-
So if a member of the public has a question, they just contact you?
So it depends on the nature of the question. When parents have a question, the best course is start with teacher, then work with building administrators, and then if need be, escalating to central office administrators. The board really should never be the first option for that. If, however, we're talking about it sort of a basic question or a constituent looking to be heard, then it is appropriate to reach out to board members. What I would say, unless you have more comment, we can move into
No, I
member
don't.
comment, and we might be able to address more. All right. So thank you. So
Thank you.
I'll say broadly, yes, it would be amazing. There's a really long list of it would be amazings. I am a technologist, and a project manager, not because I like doing project management, but just because it's the only way in my experience that stuff gets done. I've got a really long list at work for my clients, things that need to get done. And we got to go through and prioritize a lot, and especially in the sort of Board of Education world, and it's sort of world where someone like Tom is a superintendent covering for 3 districts and all the others. It's not that it's impossible to get this done. Like I know how to create a database, I know how to normalize data, I know how to do all those things. But I'm a volunteer who it would not be appropriate for me to build out a database for sort of the Board of Education. And so we got to, or for our districts. And so we have to say, is there someone in central office? Is there someone in our buildings who can sort of do that work to normalize the data and make it so that you can search for gifts? We just hired a director of technology and digital learning. And I think she's going to be a huge win for us to be able to do some of these wish list items. However, we definitely don't want her to get bogged down before she has sort of a greater sense of what are all of the things that are sort of important for us to do, and sort of to have that inventory, so that then she can dive in and and sort of start helping us with that kind of work. So what I would say is, yes, it's a very good idea, but it also it's one of many, many very good ideas that we just have to prioritize and work through. We are totally committed to doing that kind of work, though. We're not, I will never accept it's hard, so we're not going to do it. Like, nope, that doesn't fly. It's hard and it's worth doing, so let's figure out how to do it. We just have to, map it out so that we're not displacing other things that are perhaps more urgent. Any other committee member comment?
Well said.
Oh. Thanks. Okay. Good. Then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris. And wait, I'm going to, I always mess this up. No, unanimous consent.
Absent objection.
Absent objection, we are adjourned. Thank you.
So John, I'll call you if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks.